Hi everyone, it's Joe here from Lawn Solutions Australia, and welcome to this episode of Turf Talk, where I'm joined by the project manager at Twinview Turf, Trent Hobson. Trent, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Joe. Popping my podcast cherry.
Yeah, lucky me. So we've had your boss, actually, Max Stevenson, on this podcast a few episodes ago. So if you haven't checked that already, check out the podcast we did with Max. But you work under Max in the same company, Twinview Turf, and we heard a little bit about Twinview with Max on the podcast. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about it and probably how Twinview is different to the average turf farm?
So we're a 240 hectare turf farm based in southeast Queensland. We've actually got three wings of the business, which is sports field construction, sports field renovation, and turf production. So when one goes quiet, the other two sort of help bolster the business, and it's worked really successfully for us so far.
So most turf farms obviously are just that. They're harvesting turf and delivering it to residential commercial markets, but you guys go that next level. So when you talk sports field maintenance, renovations and the like, what are you actually talking about? What kind of work do you guys do?
So aeration, top dressing, scarifying, weed spraying, all the above, goal mouth repairs. We do turf patching on fields at the end of the season, pretty much anything that's required on a sports field we do.
How long's Twinview been into that side of things for?
We were getting into it 18 years ago when I started there, but it's grown exponentially since. I started on that side of the business about 11 years ago, and it's just grown in leaps and bounds since then.
And so you talk maintenance, but you also talk construction. So that's literally building them from start to finish?
So we build them from start to finish. We resurface existing sports fields. We do subsurface drainage, irrigation. Yeah. All of the above.
So from suburban grounds to top level, everything in between, or do you pick one or not the other?
Exactly.
Everything?
School ovals. We just did Brighton Homes Arena, which is the new Brisbane Lions ground at Springfield.
Yeah, cool. So we'll get into more of the oval work later and some of the projects that you've overseen in your long time at Twinview Turf. Now, what's it?
18 years.
18 years. Yep. How'd you get into the industry? How'd you start this journey that's got to where you are now?
I pretty much fell in my lap. I had a job as a landscaper that I was supposed to start a week after I got the job with Twinview. They'd employed one of my housemates and saw my CV, which had a lot of farming background on it, and decided they wanted me instead of my housemate. Okay. And I said, no, that's not the deal. I got another job, and they took both of us.
How'd that go down with the housemate?
Well, he got the job anyway.
He got the job too.
Yeah, we carpooled for the 12 months he worked at Twinview,
And where are you from? You said a farming background, so
I'm from Gunnedah, New South Wales originally. My family's got cattle and broadacre grain crop country there. Yeah.
Okay, still do?
Yeah, still got about 10,000 acres over 6 farms there.
Do you get back to Gunnedah much now?
Not as often as I should. COVID made it pretty tough. There was 18 months I never got home to see the family at all. But I probably get home 2 to 3 times a year.
Yeah, right. Good place, Gunnedah. I've been there a bit.
Yeah, it's good. It was a good place to grow up. I really enjoyed it.
What was your tip again for me? The Impey Hotel? That's the one we went to, isn't it?
Yeah, the Impey Hotel.
The Impey Hotel, Gunnedah. Shout out.
Anyone in Gunnedah, go to the Impey and get a chicken schnitzel. You won't get a better one.
It was good. So your life now, it's pretty intense work-wise. I know it's a big job you got to do there, and it's probably a lot of pressure. So tell me about sort of the typical day. I know there probably isn't a typical day, but do your best to describe a typical day for you now at Twinview Turf.
That is pretty tough because there's no real typical day. I guess scheduling and planning the jobs is probably the biggest part. I still get on the tools and give the boys a hand a fair bit. But, probably just scheduling and planning, ordering product, talking to clients.
Do you quote yourself, do you? Or
a little bit. We've actually got a salesman that wins most of the work.
Yeah.
I do some quoting for particular clients, but he probably wins most of the jobs, and I take them on and see them through to the finish.
Because I'd imagine there'd be a lot involved with scheduling a project like this. So how long can, let's say you're building let's say Brighton Homes, for example. Yep. How long can it be from start to finish?
Brighton Homes was about 4 months from when we took possession of the site to when it was handed back.
Right.
It probably took a little bit longer than it should have with weather and that, but generally about 3 to 4 months from start to finish.
And I know this is a 4-month process trying to get it explained in 5 minutes, but a lot of people probably listening won't understand how much work actually goes into building a let's say, a top-tier stadium like Brighton Homes and the technology that's involved now and what's actually under the surface. So why don't you break it down for the listeners in a start-to-finish process?
Right, so start to finish, we took possession of the site at Brighton Homes Arena at subgrade, which was plus minus 20 mil, meaning they had it pretty close to the height. We got our laser bucket, tidied up the surface to exact height with three-dimensional UDS gear, so we can build a dome-shaped field.
So dumb that down for me. Three-dimensional UDS gear. So this is
pretty much we can build a field that's not just one flat plane. We can build it as a dome shape, like a cricket field or whatever, so they get runoff in every direction.
To get a grade so critical like that right, is how much of that's done by eye now, and how much of that's done by computer?
Essentially, zero is done by eye.
Right.
That's all the machine tells you when you're at height. But
yeah,
the operator can save himself some time by being able to see by eye where the low spots are and high spots are, and not be carting dirt from one side of the field to the other to fill a low spot when there's some close. So there's still good operators and bad operators, but essentially the machine does most of it for you now.
So you got the cut, you got your levels right, you got your heights right. What goes in next?
So then we installed all of the irrigation, so trenched it all in, fitted everything off, backfilled it with sand. Then we went and installed all the subsurface drainage. So every 4 metres there's a 50 mil ag line.
Every 4 metres?
Every 4 metres.
So that's kilometres and kilometres of ag lines throughout.
Yeah. I think it was about 5.5 kilometres of ag line in one AFL field.
Are you guys doing all that yourself? Like
yes.
Twin View people are doing that?
Yeah, right. We do it all in-house.
So you put all your drainage in, then it's time for sand?
Yep, and it's time for sand. So we imported 9,800 and something tonne of sand into that field.
And it's not just sand, is it? Like you've got to get stuff to spec,
We imported that one as straight sand, but it is sand that's done to spec, so USGA grade.
Yeah.
Then we spread amendments over the top of it and tilled it in with a bleckavator.
Yeah.
And then we obviously finished that to true height and time for turf.
And turf, so Tiff Tough went in Brighton Homes.
Yeah, it was Tiff Tough, yep.
You put Tiff Tough in a lot of your projects now?
Yes, we do, yeah. It's getting real traction up home and we're getting it into a lot of fields. We've done 25 or 26 sports fields with Tiff Tough now.
Wow, okay. And is most of the turf you put into these projects washed or unwashed?
When it's on a sand profile like that, it's generally always washed.
For those that listen to the Max podcast as well, you would have heard about the pretty impressive washing plant you got set up, and that's quite unique. So you can do everything that is involved with these ovals totally in-house now, can't you?
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
And so Brighton Homes was the big one, and I was lucky to be up your way with you last week, and you took me on a little bit of a tour, and we saw the wash plant in full action, washing a lot of Kayo, which is unusual for the Brisbane climate. So are you allowed to tell us about that project? I suppose you are. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that project, because it's another cool one.
We were engaged by Racing Queensland to contract grow 13 hectares of Kayo for the redevelopment of the Gold Coast Turf Club. Mm-hmm. We've never grown Kayo before, so it was a bit of a challenge. It's very different to the other varieties we're used to. But it's at turfing stage now, and we've started washing for the course. We're about a third of the way through the course now.
So in a nutshell, washing is basically blasting all the farm soil off the turf.
Exactly,
to not interrupt the nice soil profile, the nice sand profile that they've built in on site. How long is it taking you to wash turf now with your new plant?
So with the Kayo, we're doing 3,000 metres a day.
Yeah.
We're limited with what they can get laid down there each day.
Mm-hmm.
Brighton Homes Arena, for example, we laid 4,500 metres of wash turf a day, and it was all washed the day before.
Yeah, right. Right, so you're a little bit slower when it comes to this.
Yeah, the Kayo hasn't got the same tensile strength as the Tiff Tough, so it's a lot slower.
You notice a big difference?
Oh, massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
Do you turf most of these, or is Stlinizing still a big thing in the sports turf world?
We still Stlinize a few fields. As a general rule, it's more solid turf now because we get the quicker turnaround. They can be back in play.
Yeah.
Uses less water, obviously a lot of water to establish stolons. And, the field's out of action for longer to grow it in and have it ready.
Yeah.
So most of them are solid turf.
A big project that Twinview are involved with, and I know you're very heavily involved with it because I actually saw you on the Harvester one day when you were there cutting the special grass, is the Suncorp project.
Yes, that's right.
So how long's Twinview been doing Suncorp Stadium for?
21 years, I believe. They were growing the grass for Suncorp Stadium when I started 18 years ago.
Yeah.
So
on a contract.
On contract through Strathair, who actually have the contract with Suncorp Stadium.
So now Suncorp's extra unique, and there wouldn't be many farms at all in Australia. I don't think they'd have the mechanisms to grow the pad, the Suncorp pad, you call it, don't you? And put it in. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about the system that goes into Suncorp Stadium?
So it's a Meg-Air system that Strathair do. Essentially, we've got 1.5 hectares of grass growing up at the farm on black plastic with a 45mm sand and mesh profile to help the turf's stability.
So it's sand with fibres through it.
That's right, yeah. Yep. Yeah. And it's lay and play. We can put it in the stadium one day and they're playing on it pretty much straight away.
So last time you were harvesting it when we were up there, it wasn't a normal turf harvest. You were sitting on a little seat right underneath.
That's right, on the side of a Magnum big roll harvester.
So how thick are the rolls that we're cutting for this?
About 50 to 60 millimetres thick.
Right.
And they played on that stuff 5 days after we finished laying it.
Right, so straight in and straight on, straight
quick
away.
Turnaround, yeah.
And do you get to go into the stadiums yourself? Do you spend a bit of time in there with them? Or?
Yeah, I spend a fair bit of time in there with Matt Oliver. Just call in to see him pretty much and make sure everything's all good and see how it's going. And we've become quite good friends since he took over there for Malcaddies.
Coffee and a free lunch?
Exactly, yeah.
Perfect. And another prominent stadium that Twinview are known for, and if you've seen any of our Lawn Solutions marketing material, you would have seen this, but is it called Kayo Stadium?
Kayo Stadium, yeah.
That's the new Redcliffe, or not the Redcliffe Dolphins, sorry, the Dolphins Stadium.
Well, it's still Redcliffe Dolphins because the Kayo Cup side still play out of there, and it's always been Redcliffe Dolphins.
That's a pretty special surface. Now, it's an old enough stadium, isn't it? The stadium itself's pretty old, but the surface is...
The stadium's been there for as long as I've been in Brisbane.
Yeah.
But all the new seating and grandstands all been new, and we did the field. We redid the surface there as part of the upgrade with the new grandstands.
Now, you've told me a little bit about this before, I guess off air or in our own conversations that we've had, and that got put in, I'm going to say 4 years ago, something like that, 4 or 5 years ago?
6, I believe.
6 years ago. And it's been a pretty distinct surface in the Australian turf industry for us because it was one of the first fully turfed, high-profile TIF-Tough ovals that went in. So tell us a little bit about that project and how it's gone since. And I know they had, it got pushed to the absolute brink in one of its first things with a lot of rain and a big tournament. So why don't you go through that?
When they opened it, they had it was just before the Commonwealth Games. They had a tournament there and it bucketed down about 400 millimetres the weekend that they played this this tournament on there. And it had, I believe it was 14 hours of play on it with 400 mil of rain.
Wow.
And I went in there and looked at it on the Monday expecting just to see no grass left, and you'd barely know they'd played on it. It was incredible.
And that's due to a number of factors. The cultivar for one, TIF-Tough obviously can handle wear and tear, but what sort of systems under that ground to be able to withstand something like that?
So it's got a 50 mil drainage line every 3.5 metres across the surface as well.
Right.
So that allows for pretty good drainage.
Yeah. To do this sort of work, like there's obviously so much involved. Like we just went through it then. You got your drainage, you got your subgrade prep, you got your irrigation you got to put in. What sort of equipment is required for Twinview Turf to do that? It's not just a tractor and a bucket, is it? There's a lot more.
No, that's right. So we've got state-of-the-art drainage technology. So when we're draining, we can do existing sports fields that have got the grass still on them and catch all the spoil straight out of the trench, backfill and fertilise and grow the stuff back across, and there's zero damage to the field. They're back on it within 2 or 3 months. That's very worst.
So this is an established grass field.
In
you
an
can cut
established grass
in.
field, and it catches all of the spoil straight out of the trench, so there's nothing left beside the trench to have to clean up with a bobcat and press it into the grass. You virtually don't know we've been there except for the beautiful straight lines of sand that are there.
Always straight?
Always straight, GPS technology.
GPS again.
Yep. So, there's no human error there.
And this is all Twinview stuff, comes in on Twinview trucks and away you go?
Yeah, 100%. Yep. It's all owned by Twinview.
And how many of these projects do you reckon you've overseen now in 18 years or however long you've been doing this?
In the 11 years I've been involved on this side of the business, probably be more than 40 sports fields.
Wow.
I couldn't even count them.
And the planning stage, how much of that, because I see these technical plans all the time. You showed a couple when we were looking at your presentation yours this morning, and it's a bird's eye view essentially of an oval and just lines. all
Yes.
over the place. So are you putting them together, or is that done by someone else?
No, they're generally handed to us. We do some of our own D&C, design and construct work, but as a general rule, it's handed to us. The design's already done by someone like SportEng or a consultant that's already put it all together, and we just have to price and build it to spec.
Yeah, technical.
That's
why you're on the big bucks. So further to Twinview, you've got another role within our industry that's pretty prominent, probably a little bit understated how prominent it actually is. You're the president of STA Queensland, the Sports Turf Association Queensland. So tell us a little bit about the organisation of STA and then the Queensland fraction that you're the president of. What do you guys do? What's your role mainly involve?
So Sports Turf Association of Queensland, I've been on committee for 6 years now, and this is my third term as president, so 3 years as president. We host educational events, just walk and talks, field days, just try and get the industry together really and network, share ideas.
And your members are who mainly?
Mostly greenkeepers, stadium ground staff. Mm-hmm. We're free to anyone doing their apprenticeship, anyone doing their greenkeeping apprenticeship. So we get a lot of student members. Mm-hmm. And it's mostly ground staff and people working in sports stadiums. And
your goal is to educate these people further and encourage them to stay within the industry? Is that
exactly? And even just to get them together and network and I know that a lot of greenkeepers have a tough time every now and then, and just keeping them together gives them an ear to chew and someone to talk to.
We spoke about this a couple of times in this podcast. It's a funny trade, greenkeeping, because you're working on such high profile locations like prestigious golf clubs, for example, and you obviously got a lot of members who are pretty harsh and pretty critical towards you. And I think it's pretty commonly known now that greenkeepers traditionally aren't paid very well for what they do. So how do you handle that within your industry? Is that a common thing you discuss? Is it work conditions and that sort of thing?
I think because it's such a tight-knit industry, a lot of people do discuss it amongst themselves, and there's always someone there to talk to, which is really good. And I always encourage people to talk. If you got a problem, talk to someone in the industry because they're going through the same. And probably the media really give greenkeepers a hammering, as you would have seen when there's a surface not playing well. They're pretty quick to jump on it and run with it
without knowing anything about it.
Without knowing anything about it. That's one of the big things. And something that for a lot of people probably don't know is like a lot of the stadium managers for the big stadiums are put on media bans and not allowed to give their case. So the media can give them a real hammer and they can't even get on there and explain what's happened or why it's like it is. So it can be pretty tough on them at times.
I can imagine that was a frustrating time, particularly for Suncorp. We're just talking about Suncorp, and that got resurfaced this year, and they copped a pretty hard time in the media as well, not knowing anything that went on at all.
Yeah, exactly. And the media aren't quick to say that the turf had only been down for 4 days or 5 days when they were playing on it. And they don't really like to talk about that. It's just easy to throw a negative story out.
It's not just sports fields they've got to contend with now too. You know about this with what you do. Like, it's more concerts and things that aren't sport at all that do the damage, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that resurface only happened because of the concerts that they had there in the off-season.
Yeah.
So Ed Sheeran bumped out. We were in there 2 days after his last show, and there was only a 12-day turnaround until the first NRL game on the field.
Yeah, right. Bloody Ed.
And the grass had been covered for 2 weeks, I believe, so there's nothing left alive when the stage comes up.
So what do they do? So if you're someone who goes to one of these concerts and goes to see Ed Sheeran at Suncorp Stadium, there's a beautiful playing surface there, then Ed comes along. What do they do to protect the grass, or it's just open slather, it just goes straight on top?
With a concert like that, they knew they couldn't protect the grass, so essentially they just put the floor matting down, which is more so people have got something to walk on if it does rain. There's not walking in mud and getting boggy. But they do, like Suncorp has concerts where they might only replace 2,000 metres at the northern end under the stage. Yeah. And they just lay the floor matting down as late in the thing as they can before the concert, and then pull it up as soon as people are walking out. There'll be staff coming in starting to pull the floor up the same night the concert finishes.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and so you might not have to replace then.
So floor covering, remove it really quickly, and then just replace whatever's the worst.
Exactly. And where the stage sits, there's just the sheer weight of it sitting on the flooring that kills the grass underneath.
With Suncorp, I've always thought this. You watch the Origin mainly at Suncorp Stadium. You look, they give you the bird's eye view. The camera angle goes over the top. It's such a small opening on top. How do they keep the grass looking as good as it does with virtually no sunlight?
So they've actually got grow lamps in there. They got, I believe it's 6 stands of UV grow lamps that they put out every night.
Right.
So this time of year, from about the 25 metre mark on the field, won't see any direct sunlight all day. Zero sunlight. So they've got the grow lamp.
And it cops all the wear in the world.
All the wear in the world, yep.
And grow lamps. So what do they look like and what do they actually
do? I believe the ones in there would probably be about 25 metres wide, and they're just a rack of ultraviolet lights on wheels, like drag them out like a big trailer, fold them out, and then every day they move them to cover the next bit of grass. And if they've got nothing on during the day and they don't have any maintenance, mowing or works to do on the field, they just stay out all day.
Artificial sunlight.
Artificial sunlight.
Yeah, right. I've always wondered how they sort of kept that in check. So Suncorp, Brighton Homes, Gold Coast Turf Club.
Yep.
What other big projects have Twinview been involved with?
So when I took on the role at Twinview as project manager, my very first job was resurfacing the Gabba.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Righto.
So that
no
was
pressure. No pressure.
No pressure. That was the very first gig I had as a project manager for Twinview. We completely resurfaced the whole of the stadium outside the wicket block.
So stripping off all the grass?
Stripped all the grass with a top maker.
Yeah.
Gave the surface a scarify, brushed it up to tidy because the shape was right. We didn't need to do any reshaping works. Just took the grass off and tidied it up and new turf down.
How do you feel looking after a project like that? Are you nervous
about it?
That one
I was pretty nervous. That one I was pretty nervous about.
Yeah.
And we started doing that the returfing as washed maxi rolls, and the paddock that we were growing the grass on had a lot of little fine rock in it, and with the washing of the maxi rolls, we couldn't get rid of the rocks out of it.
Right.
So there was a bit of a stoppage in play after the first day. We're trying to work out how we're going to stop the rocks.
Yeah.
So obviously the rocks are no good for the cylinder mower they're going to be mowing it with.
Yeah.
So the third day of install, we were doing it with slabs, so we could actually flip each slab over on a rack and shake the rocks out of it before it got to the stadium.
Okay. So that one might have kept you up at night.
That one kept me up a little bit when the first day's turf went in full of rock. Yeah.
And what do you like now? Like you watch the AFLW finals on Brighton Homes Arena. Not long after you finished turfing.
That was played less than 7 weeks after we put the turf on the stadium.
And are you watching that going?
I was actually there.
No,
that one I was fine with because I knew the grass was going to be right with that one.
Yeah.
I'd said to the guys from Brisbane Lions probably 3 weeks out when there was first talks started that they might be getting played there, that they'd be right. It wouldn't be the grass that stopped them.
Yeah.
So that one I was fine with.
So you're pretty casual footy watcher now when you know it's your
that one I was right
on
with, yeah. That one I wasn't too concerned about at all.
That's good. That's good. And any other big projects coming up that you can talk about now? I know you guys do a lot of suburban grounds and council work and renovation, but
there's no major stadiums on the horizon.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of, but the Olympics are coming to Brisbane, so
okay, that's true.
There'll probably be some stuff coming up when that starts to really unfold.
Well, they'll have to resurface a lot of stuff, I'd imagine.
There'll be a lot of stuff happening. Yeah. Like the Gabba's getting a complete overhaul. It's getting taken down and redone.
Okay, yeah.
So, there'll be some stuff in the pipeline there that I'm sure we'll be a part of.
You have to get stuck into Shore yourselves and to make sure he's winning there, won't you?
Yeah, tell him to get on his game.
Get on his game. Yeah, that's great. It's a pretty interesting story. It's really interesting work, what you guys do. And I think a lot of people don't understand what actually goes into this. It's not just spreading 80-20 out and throwing some grass on top. There's so much involved. And
yeah, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people would never think happens with the sports field.
And I think if you get the chance, it's worth checking out Twinview's website. They've got a lot of stuff on there from projects that they've done, and you'll get a glimpse into what kind of equipment they've got, and again, how much work actually goes in and how much stuff Trent has to oversee on a day-to-day basis. And on that, what kind of team what kind of crew you got to do this? How many people you got working at Twinview on this side?
Working directly under me, I've got about 8 guys generally. Then there's a couple of blokes that work on the farm when we're not doing big constructions that come out and do stuff that are specially trained on what we're doing with the construction work. So they sort of jump between both sides of the business.
Mm-hmm. And at what stage does the big boss come on site?
When he feels like it. He's good. He comes in, and whenever Max is involved in a job, there's plenty of staff on the job because he'll pull people from everywhere on the farm to come and make sure it happens quick. He's got a fair bit more pull than I do. I get 4 guys for the same job. He'd have 8.
I don't believe that for a second. Not for a second. No. Look, great story. You're a really important person in our industry, and I obviously it's shown by your position there at Twinview, but also president of STA Queensland. And if you're listening to this and you're a greenkeeper or you're in the industry and you're in Queensland, I'd recommend you check out STA Queensland and join it because I'd imagine there's a lot of benefit to being a member.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah, definitely.
That's great. That's great. Well, Trent Hobson, project manager from Twinview Turf, thanks for being on the podcast. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been good.